country. God is good all the time, and today I have a new pump. And just recently I did an update video on my 15-gallon per minute Rite pump that I had bought used, and it was froze up, and I rebuilt it and had it for a year, and it's working great. Two is one, one is none. So what we try to do is double up on things sometimes, and also make things a little bit more convenient for us as well. What I have today here, I have a 20-gallon a minute Rite pump and the parts and pieces to go along with it. I got a meter, the pump, and all the fittings should be in here to accommodate another fuel setup. What I plan on doing with this is installing it on a 250-gallon diesel tank. The reason I like this setup is because I can use this pump with a 10-micron filter and utilize the smaller nozzle to go into, pump back into the truck. So if I'm out and about in another state that has more expensive fuel, I can utilize that pump to refill the truck. So versatility is what we're all about here, and thinking of ways to do multiple tasks off the grid when possible. This pump and this setup actually helps augment in that. What we're working on now is a little bit of extra fuel storage and ways of being able to transfer that. What this pump will allow me to do is, if that pump ever breaks down, which I don't see any reason why it should, if it does break down, then I have a backup pump I can switch things across, and I can show you how I can do that really easy on this pump here. What this also helps us to do is to optimize, like usually in the wintertime, it seems to me like fuel prices kind of go down a little bit, and in the summertime during tourist season and whatnot, it seems like fuel prices go up. I guess it all depends on who might be in office at the time. So we like to have a little extra on hand in case of emergencies or whatever. This one here has a little bit more volume, and it also gives me the capacity with this extra tank that we got. I can fill the equipment up on site here as well. So what we have here is we got the wire for powering up. This is a 12-volt pump. You can also get these in 110 volts. I chose to go with the 12-volt pump so I don't have to rely on electricity or AC power. This is a big, larger 1-inch ID hose. ID stands for inside diameter. We got a 1-inch hose instead of a 3/4-inch hose, which is on that pump. I got a diesel dispenser, and this also comes with a little, just like you would see at the service station. So I can go hands-free. That'll click off automatically, or I could just do it manually as well. Whenever you see a green handle, that stands for diesel fuel. So what I've done here to save you guys all the pain and agony of sitting here watching me do all this is I went ahead and took some Teflon tape and wrapped each one of these pieces of pipe. The other thing that I did is I put a little number on there with a Sharpie felt tip pen and labeled each one of these from the intake all the way around to the outlet, and numbered each one of these pieces of pipe so I can discern where to put this. Obviously I could flip that around if you wanted to, but it was just as easy to label 1, 1, 2, 2, and so on and so forth, so there's no question as to where all of the pipes go when I go to hook this together. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Flow. I have this tilted back just a little bit, so now I can put the filter on. This is just temporary, so I'm going to leave the wrapping on here. I'm just putting the filter on temporary just to get my alignment correct in relationship to my piping and my pump. So it looks like I need to come down with this 90-degree piece, and I need to come straight down this way with the filter head. I came up with a game plan on how I wanted to hard plumb this together. I got a bunch of elbows, street elbows, and 8-inch pipe, 6-inch pipe, and 4-inch pipe, and a 3-inch pipe. Everything is loose right now. What I wanted to do is I wanted to pre-fit everything. I want to configure the piping in such a way that it was nice and compact and condensed and facing the way that I want it to face. This is the best way to, in my opinion, to set it up. That way everything is close together. And there's a couple of neat things that I discovered about the meter, and that is that you can change the rotation of this meter. So you can have this plumbed in from the bottom instead of horizontally. Let me just go ahead and take this apart and show you. So we just disconnect the flange. I just have these loosely connected with 3/8-inch bolts. And you want to be careful with these because it is aluminum. You don't want to strip something out here, so you want to have good support underneath here when you take everything apart and put it together. Like I say, I'm just dry fitting everything right now just so I can get the best setup for my particular applications. So when the meter comes, it comes with this adapter, this 90-degree elbow basically. This particular 90-degree flange comes with a long bolt with it, and then you just use 3 of the existing bolts that you'd use with this flange if you decide to use a 90. You have a gasket in here, so you want to make sure it stays in there. You have a gasket on both ends of this. This is the inlet side. This is the outlet side. And so now that I know how I want this configured, I'm going to change the meter around so the outlet is going this way. But I want to back up and show you what how the meter actually comes. It's pretty neat. It comes with 2 flanges like this already assembled on the meter, and assembled just like this. You also have this adapter here. I guess the number would be F0998. You can put the elbow on this way, where you can have, in this particular area, you got to follow the arrow, and the inlet goes in here, and then you could have it come through here and out a straight pipe. And I suppose you could also buy another one of these if you want to go straight down. But on this side, you could have it facing up, or you can have it facing down. It gives you some versatility here, which is something I really like. So all you have to do to just change the rotation or the direction of your meter is just loosen. You have let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8 half-inch bolts, and then this just lifts off of here, and you can rotate this any way you want. Well, 4 different directions, but I'm going to rotate it like this. Now my flow goes this way, and my meter face is going to be the same as it was when I had the arrow pointing the other way. So, but now it can register. So we just tighten these bolts back up again, and of course you want to make sure that gasket is in place. It's not out of place. There's a gasket inside there between this part and the face, or the base, the meter base, or the main part of the meter. Anytime you tighten something like this down, you want to tighten down the screws evenly so you get equal pressure on the gasket when this comes together. And I just keep working it around like that. When I first start putting it in here, I try to go opposite of each other. That way you stand a better chance of it not leaking or distorting the gasket ununiformly. Then I just go around in the clockwise direction, just making sure that they all feel the same. I'm sure there's probably some torque specs on this, but I don't know what they are. Now, because I'm going to be going horizontal into this, I'm going to put the this square flange on here, or not really square, it's rectangular, and make sure you have your gasket. Now you just put the flange on the nipple, and of course when I go to get serious about putting this together, hard plumbing it, obviously I'll put some Teflon tape on here. This came with the pump. Again, I'm just lining all this up to make sure it's going to fit. There's not going to be something that I'm missing, so not getting too serious about putting it together quite yet, as far as making sure everything's really tight on the inlet flange and the outlet flange, and then also my pipe fittings. So now a guy could either come off of this with a straight horizontal piece of pipe, or a street elbow, or you can use this piece right here, and that would take the place of your street elbow. And the other thing I like about this is that it keeps everything nice and compact in here. Pretty good sized piece of equipment. So the more compact you make this, the less susceptible to brush or something like that knocking it off of there. So I'm trying to make it as compact as possible, and this little elbow will help do that trick for us. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this on with these loose. Okay, what I found out that I have all this just kind of loosely installed, and when I go to tighten all this up here, the back of the meter is going to be pressed up against this elbow, so I don't want that. So what I'll do here is I'll take this longer piece of pipe and then change it out with this piece of pipe, and then that should bring the meter and everything out that way, just enough to where I can clear this elbow and this piece of pipe back here. You can't really see it until I turn it around and let you look at it, but you can see right here the back of the meter is going to hit the back of this piece of pipe. So what I'll do is I'll change this piece with this piece, and that will bring the meter out a little bit. Okay, I think this is going to work out pretty good. Once I get everything tightened together, I think there's going to be plenty of clearance around everything. So I'll be able to put a filter wrench on here and take this off, because I have a 1/2 inch or so of clearance on the back side between the pump and the filter. And looking at the front, I can even lower this down just a little bit to narrow the profile a little bit better. And I think that's going to turn out real nice. I really like that. So I'm going to go ahead and get this stuff tightened up. So what you'd want to do is you'd want to put your Teflon tape on this. This is the pickup tube. After you put the Teflon tape on here, then you screw it to the bottom of this flange. So this 2-inch pipe thread, after you secure this, it's a good idea to go ahead and put Teflon tape on this as well. You can mount the whole unit onto your tank in a couple of different ways. And the way I mounted this on my last tank is I just took this whole apparatus and just screwed it into the 2-inch bung on the top of the aluminum tank. But what you can do as well is you could take this, you take your 7/16" wrench, and you could take these four bolts out here. You can install the pipe and up to the flange onto the tank, and that may or may not be easier for some folks, because you have to balance all this heavy weight right here over top and then line these screws up, and that could be just as difficult as taking this whole assembly like it is, extending this tube to its full outer limit there, and recessing it into the tank. Once this hits the bottom of the tank, it's gonna push up to wherever it needs to be. You don't want these pipes to be extended clear to the bottom, in my opinion, on the tank, because that's where all your rust and your sediments build up in the bottom. So you want a little bit of settling space for water and rust particles and any dirt that might get into the fuel. So that's just another way of keeping your fuel clean. At any rate, I'm going to go ahead and recess this whole unit into that bung instead of taking these 4 screws out of here. And then when I get the unit mounted onto the tank, then I'll go ahead and get this wired up. Keeping this nice and square as I'm coming along down through here, because you can strip those threads if you're not careful. But I find this easier than to take that flange off. I think it'd be easier to do it this way than to hold this up and try to line up these 4 screws on this flange, holding this and trying to put those tiny screws in there all at once. So I like that a lot better. Anyway, I think I'm going to assemble it something like this, or I can assemble it like that, or I can set it in such a way that it's facing the back side of the tank. The pump's actually going to be sitting on the other side, but again, this is just for demonstration purposes, so I can get this video up. But anyway, I have valves on the other side of the tank, so everything is going to be on that side, and so that side will be the front-facing side of the tank, and I'll probably have this sitting close to a wall or something like that, so it'll be easy to access. Okay, so now that I got that, you know, mocked up, it's going to sit like that. If you're wondering why I didn't put the hose on first, I didn't want to have to handle this and this whole pump and meter and all that at the same time. Well, I got ahead of myself, guys. I need to put the nozzle boot on here so I can hang the nozzle. There's a few holes in here where you can adjust this in different locations or different angles. Let's secure that with a 1/2 inch drive. And that's how that sits. And you have this last long one that goes right there on that side of the flange. That is going to be a 3/8, I think. Now I'll get these a little tighter because I don't want them to strip out on me. Just snug. Because I'll be taking this back off in order to clean out this barrel, or this tank here. Okay, the last thing to do is to install the electrical cord. John Cody dog. You want up here? Walk around a little bit? You want to hang out with me up here? Huh? I'm just going to take about maybe 3 inches off, not off of here, but trim this back about 3.5 inches. You don't want to cut into the sheathing on the wires, just the outside sheathing. And I'm going to take off maybe 3/8 of an inch to 1/2 inch of sheathing off of the end of the cables. And if I was smart, I would have put this on beforehand, but it's not a big deal. You slip that on the end there. In the final installation, I'd be putting Teflon tape on this as well. Okay, buddy, one down. Okay, here we go. So the kit comes with 3 yellow wire nuts. I don't know if you guys are familiar with these or not. There's a rubber grommet in here. When you tighten this down, that seals that inside there on the sheathing, or on the plastic sheathing of the electrical cable. So when you put this on, it goes on like so, and you can just put just enough tension on it to where it don't fall off on you. And this has to come off. So you have to remove the junction box cap, and that is a T25 Torx head. Move that up close to the end where I have this sheathing pulled away. Just run it in the J box. And just tighten this down. Again, I'd be putting Teflon tape on this. You don't have to really cinch these down horribly tight. This right here, matter of fact, when I do it, I'm just going to go finger tight with this piece, and then a wrench, maybe a quarter a turn with this one after I got it finger tight or hand tight. And then, while these are exposed, see, I got just enough wire in here, so it's not stressful trying to get in here and put a wire nut on there. I got enough slack on here to where I can get a wire nut, and I got plenty of room to work. So you make sure you hook up black to black. They got paint on this, so this is the black wire. So it's not a bad idea to put some antioxidant on the wire ends inside of your wire nuts. That way it keeps oxidation and moisture from getting the best of your connections. So you just hook these together, the red to red. You don't want any strands hanging loose. All the wire strands in the wire nut. Get that nice and tight. Likewise with the black. And I could afford to have these wires here inside of the junction box. I could have had those just a little bit longer. I'm fighting this just a little bit. Again, I'll be removing this again, so I'm not putting any antioxidant in the wire nuts at this time. Coil the wire up inside the J box and reassemble. Now, I'm not sure if you noticed or not, but inside this J box cover there was a rubber seal that mates up with the other side of the casing here. There's also a wiring diagram underneath here. It's pretty straightforward. They want you to put a ground from this screw here. They provide you a ground to go onto the chassis of the pump. And then they want you to ground it to the tank. Well, realistically, you got grounding here. You have this flange going into these bolts. These bolts are actually bolted to the frame of the pump assembly. However, there might be bad connections in here as far as ground going from here all the way up and around to the electrical area. So I'm thinking that drilling and tapping a connection right here where I've got the end of the screwdriver and putting a screw like this one and just coming across over here and grounding out to the tank is what they're proposing. Because this is a 12 volt system, you can get these in 110 and 12 volt. I have enough cable here that I can get this away from any sparks and whatever, so to make it safe. And then I'll just put some alligator clips on this and be able just to hook it to a battery. I can hook it to a truck battery, equipment battery, just a spare battery that I have on hand. I might get just a regular deep cell battery and then just have like a solar trickle charger going onto that to keep it topped off all the time, because this won't be used all the time. I'm going to cycle fuel through it, but it's just going to be extra storage for me. I think that's going to work out real well to go augment my other pump. I think it'd be a good idea also to get a hand pump in case you don't have a battery, or something happens to where you don't have a way to power this. But I have quite a few batteries around here, vehicles and such, that I don't see that as being a problem, especially if I put alligator clips on the other side of this. I can hook to any battery and get this to working. Now, the other thing I want to point out is you can get different filters for these. This happens to be a 10 micron filter, and it's good good for 40 gallons a minute. So that's well within the pumping parameters of the pump here. It's 20 gallons per minute. This is a 30 micron filter, and I don't want any particulate in going through any of my diesel engines, because that would be an expensive repair job. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, once I clean this tank out, I have some more older fuel that I want to filter. So I'm going to run that through this 30 micron filter, and then I'm going to change filters out, and I'm going to filter it again. I'm going to repump it and get it all nice and clean before it goes into any of the vehicles. It's really important to try to keep water and contaminants out of your fuel. And with these metal tanks like this, whether they're aluminum or steel, over time they get moisture buildup in them. So I like the Hydrosorb filter that's actually on the truck, and that's on that 15 gallon a minute pump. The Hydrosorb filters are only good for 18 gallons a minute, whereas these bigger filters like this, the part number for this filter is F4010PMO. I think that stands for 40 gallons a minute. At 10 microns, it shows here 10 microns and 40 gallons per minute, or 151 liters per minute at 50 psi. This is the F4030P, so that's 30 microns at 40 gallons a minute. But either one of these filters will fit on this filter housing. Well, after giving this a little bit of thought, what I decided to do is I'm going to change out this elbow that we have here for the straight flange adapter that they had on the side of the meter to start with. There's a couple of reasons for that. I don't like this bend that's occurring on this, so I'm going to put the street elbow in such a way that I can angle it any way I really want to. I thought about putting another swivel on here. I guess that's not recommended, because it'll cause a little bit of an inaccuracy with the meter. Decided to go ahead and not get one of those. Besides, those are a little more expensive anyway. They're really handy to have on this side. This flexible elbow actually helps in not spilling any fuel. Makes it a little more ergonomically pleasing when you're going to fill up a tank. So we're going to go ahead and get this taken off. Again, this is a 3/8 inch drive. Again, when I've taken something like this apart, I try to make sure that there's no tension on here, because you have aluminum on aluminum, and any abnormal tension might cause your threads to strip. So I'm kind of feeling where the tension is being released on those screws. The other thing I might add, it's really helpful to put the Teflon tape on there correctly. If I'm going to attach a pipe to this, I want to make sure that I'm winding the tape on in the same direction that the fitting is actually going to be connected. So by wrapping it this way, the pipe is going to go on this way, and it's going to go in the direction of the thread, so the tape doesn't come unraveled on you. Try to get about 8 wraps on that. Again, I'm just going to hand tighten this for now, because I got to take this back off of here, because I'm going to clean and prep my tank for receiving fuel. We got to make sure that our O-ring gasket's in here, and it is. You know, another thing that I tried, it's starting to rain here, so there's a lot of noise on this tin roof, but sorry about that. To maybe put a little bit of grease on the outside of this to keep it from oxidizing. I know on my last meter, I've seen a lot of corrosion, because out here it just gets it's wet all the time, wet and dry, wet and dry. Aluminum will oxidize, so put a little bit of grease on here will help to keep that from corroding. I think you can run gasoline, diesel, kerosene, might be some other fuels that you can run in here in this particular type of meter. So anyway, just FYI. So then before I put this on, I'll put this on so I don't have to fight this. You can see when I tighten this down, I can tighten it and favor one side or the other depending on how I set this up. So I can have the meter facing the front of the tank. There's no bind on the hose coming down. Not only does it relieve tension on the hose, it also gains you access to the rotor and vane and seals inside here. This is the repairable goods are inside here. This is actually where the pump, it's doing all the pumping, is just behind this plate. So there's an O-ring behind this plate, and that pops off, and then there's the rotor and vane setup in here that you can actually replace. So you can get seal kits, you can get rotor and vane kits for this, and so everything on this pump is repairable. So I'm going to get extra kits, extra filters. I'll also get an extra hand pump. It'll be a long time before this ever fails, but if we don't have a battery or if we don't have a way to run this, then I'll have a backup way to transfer fuel in case I'm offsite or have to take another tank and transfer fuel and I don't have this pump or I don't have the pump on my truck. So anyway, we're all about versatility here. Appreciate you stopping by. Take care and God bless.